with that being said, I want to get into the topic for today. So the topic, like I said, I was playing around with a few titles. One is um, oh gosh, mediocre relationships, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and women. And what prompted me to want to talk about that is just within the last few days, I've been seeing, well, I mean, this is ongoing. I mean, we hear about the constant thing of like men and women and these toxic relationships and just all of these things, right? And so it got me to thinking, though, about this. There's like this need for, it's like this need for women to want to constantly say, not all men, there are still men that are do that, relationships are still great, there's this, there's like this need for women to have to do that. And so I really, and it's not to say there aren't some decent men out there. I mean, of course, I mean, we can probably pretty much, know that, say that we know some decent men, right? But it got me to thinking about what's considered, a good man, provider, and all that stuff. And there's always this polarizing view. So you have on this end, you have, oh well, he's a good man. He goes to work every day and he provides for his family, right? And then you have on the other side a man who's just participating in very degenerate behavior, very harmful, all of those things, right? But what we're not really talking about is the gray areas in between, right? Excuse me. So when I'm discussing these different types of behaviors, I try to go outside of the polarizing views of good or bad, good man, not good man, right? And so that's why that's why I mentioned the title of being mediocre, because what is going on is we have most humans, most couples, married couples, whatever, long-term couples, the relationships are pretty mediocre, right? And so when we are basing things on, whether he's a good man or not, and we're basing that on the fact that he goes to work every day and he pays the bills, okay, well, I mean, he was doing that before y'all met, unless he was living with his mama and she was paying for everything. But for the most part, if he's a grown, fully formed man, he was already working and, going to work and paying his bills. So that's really not this amazing feat. But women are so impressed by that. That's basic, that's average, that's mediocre. So when you go into these, and when I say mediocre, I'm gonna, expand on that. When you go into these relationships, the relationships in and of themselves are mediocre, right? So see, how can I put this? So when we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I love to use that as an example when I'm talking about these things. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom tier, the bottom first three tiers, is your basic needs: food, sheltering, food, shelter, clothing, reproduction, right? These are your basic things, your basic needs, right? And most people remain in those first three bottom tiers. So for a lot of women, they will accept being in the relationship or a marriage with a man and they stay in those bottom three tiers, right? And so by them staying in those bottom three tiers, it's just mediocre. There's really nothing going on there. He goes to work, he pays the bills. Hey, Sabrina, if she's working outside the home, she goes to work and she contributes to the bill, the whole 50-50 thing, right? And that's it. The kids are in school, she picks the kids up, comes home from school, cook dinner, help with homework. And that's pretty much their existence, right? That's mediocre. And women have been so used to accepting mediocre. They are so used to accepting mediocrity in themselves, the men that they choose to deal with, the relationships, all of these things. They have gotten so used to that that they deem that as, if like, it's interesting, right? You will hear people say, well, he's not hitting you, so he's a good man. Why do we have to base this on him not hitting you or abusing you? I mean, that's basic human decency, not to, inflict violence on someone that you claim to care about. So why is that a measurement of how good a man is, right? So, so he's not hitting you and he goes to work and pays the bills. Okay. Again, that's not something to be celebrated, right? And women tend to celebrate these very mediocre things in men and relationships. Like, I remember I saw, this was like a few weeks ago, and I think I talked about it. There was this woman, she made a post about how her children's father drove in the rain to go to Walmart and pick up some items for the children, and then went through the drive-through and bought them some food. And you would think that is, I mean, it was almost like that was like an anomaly. And I'm like, well, that's what he's supposed to do. He's their father. You're supposed to go get your children food. You're supposed to, buy them things at the store. I mean, that's what you do for children. You go to the store and you buy them the necessities and things that they need, right? I mean, don't we all do that? But when men do it, it's like this, wow, right? Father of the Year award. And that is such infantilization. It's like women infantilize men for doing the most basic things, right? And so to me, when you're doing that keeps you in that space of mediocrity. Women have constantly been accepting mediocrity from men and the relationships. But not only men in the relationships, mediocrity in themselves. They don't feel like they can go and be great without the permission of the man or their mama's uh, decision by committee, right? And this is one of the things that's actually related to what we do when I work with women. One of the things that I help them move past is getting very comfortable with making the decisions on their own and not needing to run it past everybody before they can make a decision, right? I'm not saying that you can't have someone in your corner who like can see your blind spots, right? Um, you may want to talk to them. Maybe you got something that you want to do or whatever, and you pretty much made up your mind already. But maybe you want to go to this person because they're somebody that you can talk to, right? You can seek their counsel because they can see your blind spots. But you've pretty much already made the decision on your own, right? So this is one of the things that I get into with women. Like I said, in the container, we really dive deep into why you've been so conditioned into seeing the world through his lens and not seeing it through your own. Excuse me, because that's what takes place in these marriages, long-term relationships. Women start to view the world through his lens. I mean, I did that. So that's why I can, pretty much speak on that experience because I did that. So when you come out of it, it's like, oh, okay, so now this is all on me. It's like, okay, I'm because I always look at marriage and long-term relationships with women. For women, it's like they're still in daughtership, right? Because they're looking for him to do everything. They look at their man like it's their daddy, right? And we know they got that whole, that's another day. But most of these relationships between men and women are actually naturally incestuous because she's looking for him to be daddy, and then it flips and he's looking at her to be mommy. The things that men expect women to do for them in these relationships is the same thing that their mothers did. And then the things that women are looking for men to do in the relationships is the same thing that if their father wasn't there, that's another thing too, that missing father or whatever their father, if their father was there, they are looking for that man that they're with to do the things that their father used to do for them. It's like a whole thing because when you start getting into marriage and the way it works, it is a transfer of ownership. I did an article about this. It's called, I think it's called "You Can Be Bought" or something like that. And with women, once they get married, it is basically like I said, a transfer of ownership. So you go from being owned by your father to now being owned by your husband. This is the silent contract that women sign when they decide to get married, right? You are saying that you want to be owned, right? And you are saying that for myself, for me, willing to be owned, right? I will do that because there's always trade going on. Marriage is transactional. I don't care what women can get on here, and it's transactional. So it's like, in exchange for my autonomy, um, you can provide me. You can give me provision and protection, right? And that provision and that protection that women are looking for men to give them, that's all an illusion, because you are your first line of defense. You protect you provide for you first. All of these things are first for you. You are your first line of defense. Like, before you got married, what were you doing? Weren't you providing for yourself? Weren't you paying your own bills and doing all of these things? Yeah, you were doing all that. So this looking at them as these providers and protectors is an illusion. Now, I'm not saying that a man that you're with doesn't care about you and doesn't want to make sure that that you're good, right? He wants you to be in a good space, hopefully. Men, you got to remember that men protect what they own, what they have ownership interest in, right? This is why you can tell him you don't want to be with him anymore, and that's it. He could pretty much care less about what happens to you at that point. He'll only be um, there, right, because you have children. So when I'm talking about, the mediocrity, right? And let me just preface this by saying this is not about having issues with men or hating men or anything like that. It's not even about that. It's just I understand men, and I understand the dynamics between men and women, and I understand how men view things and how women view things. And especially when we're getting into these relationships and these marriages, right? Because men are looking for um this is why you hear men say they don't marry the love of their life, they marry the woman that's right there, because they know that she's there, she's going to be there to, while he goes and does whatever he wants to do. He knows that she's there, she's not really gonna say too much. She's not gonna challenge him too much. She gets to help him perpetuate this aesthetic that he wants. And so that's who he marries, right? Um so and that, like I said, that is the mediocrity, right? And so it's not to say that this man isn't a so-called good man, right? It's just, it's mediocrity. There's nothing else there. There's nothing, and you're just there. And like, as a woman, your energy is being siphoned, your labor, your utility, all of these things are being extracted from you while you're in these relationships. Because again, we take it back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first three tiers: food, shelter, clothing, reproduction. This is what you're there to do. And when you dare to say, you know what, I want more, I want to go, I want to do more than this. This isn't me. Like, I'm tired of all of this. I want, and then that's when the problems start, right? Are you gonna, are you going back in there? Okay. So, can you close that door? Thank you. Now, thank you. Thought was interrupted, right? So, yeah, I actually forgot what I was getting ready to say. My thought was interrupted. Oh, I remember. So when you get to that point as a woman where you're like, you know what, I want more, I want to do this, I placed myself on hold for too long and now this is something I want to do. When that starts to occur, then that's when the problems arise, right? That's what I can say for me. Once I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be married. There's more to me than this. This can't just be it. And once I said that and I wanted to really get serious about, well, I was serious about doing the work on myself and trying to figure out, what I really wanted to do. Who am I outside of all of this? It really became a problem. Um, I used to always say, as long as I'm here, being the nice little wife and mom and and I'm at home with the kids, as long as I'm here doing that, it's all good. But as soon as I want to do something that takes me outside of that role, that's when it becomes a problem. So it's almost like as a woman, when you decide that mediocrity no longer um will basically is no longer fulfilling, is no longer tolerable for you, when you decide that, that's when you become a problem. That is when you are misunderstood. This person he is going to be committed to misunderstanding you and misunderstanding what it is you want to do, where you're trying to go, how you're trying to figure things out. Once you figure out that there's more to you than just this, and even if you're not quite sure what it is, it's more, right? And he will be committed to misunderstanding you. Right. Even other people around you, like family or whoever, people who want to keep you locked into this role, or as I call it, even a time capsule. Time capsule. I always say that when women get married and they decide to be stay-at-home moms and wives, it's like they place themselves in a time capsule. So when you start to want to venture out of that, then those around you who want to keep the status quo, they are the ones that, like I said, will be fully committed to misunderstanding you and what you're trying to do and what your mission is, right? Um, so so the you know when we get back into the mediocrity of things, I wanted to just talk about that a little bit as far as how how did this happen? Why? Like, because when we start talking about marriage and the actual reason for it, that was created, and that's another thing. I always got to keep in mind that was created by humans. Humans worship marriage. It's really a wild, like it's crazy how much humans worship it, right? They are more concerned with the marriage, the aesthetic of it, than they are the actual people in the relationships, including themselves, right? And so the way women have been so conditioned into accepting mediocrity, it's like, okay, so like I said, anyway, the way I'm sorry about that, y'all. The way women have been conditioned into accepting this way of life, and it's been going on for so long that they don't even realize that it really wasn't supposed to be this way. Like, the whole idea of marriage and stuff was not created. It was not to be what it's looking like now, right? And so you have so many people who are so adamant about defending it. And and I know for me, I get a lot of pushback, especially from men. It's really interesting. It's not surprising, but it's just interesting. But I get a lot of pushback because I'm such a proponent of divorce. And the reason why I'm such a proponent of it is because of the conditions that women have accepted under the guise of being in love and marrying the love of their life and all this stuff, and everything that they've accepted, and that silent contract that they've agreed to just so they can have a man, right? So when I talk about divorce, it's because really at its core, really it's a change, it's a transition, right? And it's a transition for a woman to finally be able to live her life on her terms. And we all know that a woman living her life on her own terms is like, it's like, wait, you're not supposed to be doing that. It's always a problem, right? A woman not wanting to be married, not wanting to have children, or a woman filing for divorce, she's always portrayed as this villain. And that because what that shows you is that, wait a second, she's not delusional anymore. She's no longer under the spell, right? She's not under the spell of this this thing that we call marriage, under this patriarchal structure. She's no longer under the spell. So, now she's a problem. It is in the best interest of the system that women stay completely delusional and committed to the fairy tale of romance and all of that stuff. It is in the best interest that women stay locked into that, because when a woman is not, she's the villain, right? So it's so funny because I remember I was talking about how everything in this realm is about good, bad, black and white. You're evil and good, and all of these things, right? The villain, the hero. We have this constant, that duality, right? And so it's like there's like this like quiet competition between women who are married and women who are single, right? Excuse me. And it's always like, sometimes I was laughing about this not too long ago, because I was like, I liken it to like I said, the superhero and villain story. It's like the woman who's married is the superhero, right? And then the woman who chooses to stay single, she's the villain. And so now, but the pendulum always swings both ways. So now there has been this uptick of married women feeling, it's like this uptick of single women almost sort of trying to make married women feel bad about being married. It's very nuanced, because we have so many women that are getting on social media and they're talking about their experience of being married, and how they realize that this, they don't want this anymore, and they're complaining about their husbands, and they're doing all of these things, right? And then you have a lot of women in the comment sections who are not married, and they're like, look, we tired of hearing about y'all's marriage issues. You need to just go file for divorce and keep it moving. Like, don't nobody want to hear about all that anymore. So there's all of these different dynamics going on with women as it relates to relationships and marriage, and being single and having kids and not having kids. There's always these conflicts and all of this stuff. And so it's like, I don't know. Like I said, with women, I mean, there's just so much going on. And I think that these relationships it's the thing that, I don't know, it keeps women in such conflict with themselves and with others. And I think it's designed that way. I think that it's designed to keep women in conflict with each other, to keep women in conflict with themselves. And I swear, every time, hold on, y'all, don't go nowhere. I think you can still see me, but every time I'm on a live now, somebody's always calling me. Okay, hold on. Oh, gosh. Okay, y'all. Every time. I promise you, every time. I would say the last 3 lives. So last week, yesterday, and now today, somebody is always calling. It's interesting. Okay, so anyway, back to what I was talking about. So what I was saying is that I think that these relationship dynamics is it keeps women in conflict with each other. And I think that it always goes back to what I talk about women not knowing who they are at their core, not being able to decide who they want to be and who they're going to be and what they're going to do in life because they've been given the role. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, right? So you already have that inner conflict within, you already have the inner conflict with yourself, and then you're in conflict with other women, right? So then the jealousy, the natural propensity of jealousy for women towards other women, we have that. And then this incessant need to making women a little bit bonkers. I really do think that the male worship, this worshiping this male god, and how women take that and they worship men. I mean, I really think that it has caused us such a psychosis, right, with women, that they're doing things that are just so just insane. I mean, the way they will throw their best friend under the bus for a man. I mean, and you're doing it for a man that's going to have you living a very mediocre life. There's nothing there. He's not really doing anything outside of just going to work. He's married to his job, and you're not doing anything, all for the glorification of the ego to just say that you got a man or you got a husband. I mean, they're really I was like, the way women are with these relationships and these men need to be studied. Like, women's minds, their brains need to be studied as it relates to this, because the way they behave over a man and a relationship is something with that male gaze. I know it's the dopamine that they receive from men just by a man looking at them and making them feel chosen, and I just and look, I don't have a problem. I never tell women don't get into relationships. I never say that. I always just say that, make sure you know what you're walking into. Don't be delusional. Know what you're doing. Women spend too much time in the ethers. Stay grounded in the reality around you and accept the man for who and what he is. If you know he's a certain way and you still decide that you want to deal with him, then I guess you deal with him. But go into it with your eyes wide open. Don't be delusional. Don't think you're going to go in there and change him. This is where women mess up. And I honestly think that women could actually have better experiences with men if they just accepted men for who and what they are. I think they would have better experiences. I really do. Um, so, you know, when I was talking about earlier about what's considered a good man, right? And, that whole idea of, well, at least he's not beating on you, or at least he's not abusing you in any kind of way. But what we have to understand is, well, first of all, that's just basic human decency. You should expect that in any relationship. But we have to understand that when you are in a relationship with a man, as a woman, you're going to fragment yourself. And so, with the way the male is, his natural impediments that he already comes here with, he has to work on himself, and most of them are not. So he needs that woman around him. He needs that feminine energy so he can siphon off of that, because the feminine energy is the life force. So even if he's not hitting you or being any type of abusive towards you, he's still siphoning your energy. He's still pulling on you. He still needs you for stuff. And a great example is, I remember, like, I would be out at the grocery store, right? I have the list. We have already discussed what we're getting, right? What I'm going to get at the store. And so I'll have my list. And before I even get to the store, I get a call or a text. Don't forget this. Oh, I meant to tell you to get that. And this is before I get to the store. I finally get into the parking lot. I'm literally getting out of the car, and then I get another call, right? And then I get into the store. I'm in the store for probably 20 minutes or so. And then I get another call. They know that that is irritating. They know that they're irritating you. What I realized that that was is that's the siphoning of my energy. Why do you keep calling me? Why do you keep texting me and telling me to get this and get that? Why do you keep doing that? That is the siphoning of my energy, right? Because I'm really annoyed by it. And so now, and feeling any sort of annoyance or anything, that's an emotion. And you're causing this, right? It's like I can't even just go in the store and get what I need and come home. Because I'm very much like that when I go in the store. Tunnel vision. Don't come calling me and texting me about all this extra shit. You should have told me that before I left, right? And so when I get in there, I want to get in, get what I need, and get out. Those are just small little examples of how your energy is siphoned when you're dealing with them. Hey, Tiara. So when we talk about a good man, I know I keep putting that in quotes because women love to say that, right? We're not talking about someone who's necessarily being physically abusive or anything like that. But what constitutes a good man, right? Relationships are, I mean, they really are there to teach you about yourself, right? But there's supposed to be this energy exchange. Excuse me, y'all. I keep burping. I think it's, there it is again. Something I ate. You know what? It was the avocado. Avocado does that to me. So anyway, it's supposed to be an energy exchange. But for the most part, most relationships are rooted in codependency. So one person is basically pulling on the energy of the other, right? And it's not to say that women don't do the same thing to men, because they do. Women will siphon your energy, right? I think a lot of times for women, though, they do it with other women. Like my mom, for instance. I don't talk to her like every single day because I don't want to deal with that. Um, my mom has narcissistic traits. I think she's a narcissist, but we'll just say narcissistic traits. Um, and so if you've dealt and I hate to even talk about this because people are so like out of their minds when they're talking about narcissism. Everybody's a narcissist, right? A person can just, anyway, I don't want to do it. I'm not going on that tangent. That's my mom. And so I don't like, I don't talk to her every single day because I don't want her to siphon my energy. I'm not allowing her to pull on me like that because she will do it. If I allow her to do it, she'll do it. The way she is with my sister is much worse. Like my sister was actually contemplating cutting my mom off completely. That's how bad it is. She's not like, it's not to that extreme with me, but she will sort of get like that with me. And so this is why I say I think with women, they siphon the energy of other women. Like mothers siphon the energies of their daughters. And so I think it's a little bit different. And then when you get with a man, he's doing most of the siphoning of the energy because they're naturally codependent and they need women in order to survive. Women need men like water. They'll never admit to that, but they do. So, because most men aren't doing the work on themselves. If you're a man who has reached that level, that high frequency of self actualization, those are not the men I'm talking about. And we know that most men are not there and they're not even working towards that, right? So with them in those relationships with a woman, they're going to be siphoning her energy. And so, you know, what you'll start to see is, well, first of all, like I said, that mediocrity. And so not only are you living a very dull, you know, monotonous life, right? Then you got this other person siphoning your energy. No wonder women are filing for divorce at such a high rate. I think the statistics are like, what, 62%, 65% or something like that. The divorces are initiated by women. There's a reason for that. They're tired of all of the, just the mental, emotional, physical, everything, all of the laboring and only being valued for your utility. Not like, I'm really glad that women are doing this, but at the same time, when they're coming out of these relationships and these marriages, that's when the real work actually starts, because it's almost like they're almost like a fish out of water, because it's like, okay, now what do I do? I've been married to this man for 15, 20 years. What am I supposed to do now? And of course, that's where I come in. Uh, but, like I said, that's when the real work can begin, because now it's like you get to know you, right? You get to know who you are. You get to find that, that the essence of who you are that you were hiding or that you placed on the shelf, in order to perform that role. Well, now you get to pull her out and you get to see who and what she is. So that could look like, a woman getting into, you know, maybe she wanted to write a novel. So now she can actually write that novel, right? Whatever it is she wanted to do. But it's so important that you get an understanding of who you are outside of that. And that's major. That's very big, because who you were was tied up into this other person. I always say that women get usurped into a man's purpose when they marry him. He has an idea as to how he wants you to be in this relationship. You don't even know it, but he knows it. He has a very good idea in his head of how he wants this thing to go. Right? He has a very good idea of how he wants you to be. And women are so like people pleasing and just want the man to just just the people pleasing, right? That they go ahead and allow themselves to be usurped into it. So they can say I'm wifey, and like I said before, so they can stun on other women and all this kind of stuff. So they allow themselves to be usurped and to be owned, and to also stay somewhat in daughtership, just so they can have that man, just so they don't have to, I always talk about how a lot of times with women, they just want to leave their brains at home, right? So they do all that for those types of benefits or privileges. Like, being okay with allowing yourself to have no autonomy, to giving up your autonomy, that's crazy to me. I don't think people really think about that. Oh, I know they don't. They don't really think about that. They're not really dissecting that. You are giving up your autonomy, your agency to be in a relationship. A type of relationship that was created by humans. I always say marriage has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with love, right? Humans take it and they attach it to it. Oh, they're married. They love each other. That's why they're getting married. Okay. What does love have to do with it? I'm not saying you can't love this person. You should. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you should love them. But what does love have to do with it? I mean, if anything, you need to be strategic before you're getting into these marriages. Women are not using strategy. They're getting in there because they're in love. So they're in love, right? And then get to give up their agency and their autonomy so they can live very, very mediocre lives. This is what you exchange your autonomy for, right? You exchanged it for popping out babies, possibly still having to go to work, or even if you're not at work, outside of the home, you're at home with the kids all day, you're doing stuff, right? You're the living maid, you're the living, prostitute, who's domestic slave, a domestic prostitute. Um, you gave up your autonomy for that. I mean, really, really think about that. This is why I say my mission is to deconstruct this, but it's also to help women to get out of the delusion when it comes to relationships and men. You can enjoy a relationship with a man without allowing yourself to be siphoned, without allowing yourself to get caught up in his bullshit. This is what women are afraid to do. It's almost like they feel like they have to allow themselves to get caught up. Right. So if he has you know, issues with his baby mama or his ex-wife, and the woman feels like she has to get involved. Why do you have to get involved? Just enjoy that man. When y'all spend that time together, just enjoy him and then keep it moving. Let him go on about his business. Like that's a very bold place to be as a woman, right? When you get to that space, of course that's when you're called a whore and all this stuff. And I mean, women, we all have an inner whore. So like, okay. But I just think that women need to come out of the delusion. They need to stop looking at these men and these relationships like they need to stop looking at it through the lens of like some sort of like princess, little girl princess or whatever, right? And look at these relationships and these men as a grown ass woman. I think that most women are looking at these relationships with men, are looking at men from the lens of being in daughtership. And this is where women mess up. This is the delusion. So, what was I going to say? I lost my thought. That tends to happen, y'all. I lose my thoughts sometimes because I be having a whole lot of thoughts. My mind is very vast. Anybody have questions? Any comments or questions in the chat? So, yeah. So, again, when we're talking about, these relationship dynamics, I always like to reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I think that that's such a great illustration of where we are and where we start and what we should be building ourselves up to. So it's really a great reference, I think, to sort of go off of, especially when you're doing that work on yourself. And it's really interesting because when you look at the different colors on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's also a connection to the chakras, the different colors, the seven chakras, and they all have that corresponding color. I like how the Maslow's hierarchy of needs sort of connects to that. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that. If you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, see what I'm talking about. So I really think it's a great reference when you are, like I said, when you're doing that work on yourself, and also to sort of measure what is he doing or what is this relationship going to be like? Like, are we going to move past the first three tiers or are we just going to hang out there? Right? Because I mean, I can hang out there by myself. You have two people coming together. The goal is to move past that, right? The goal is to move past the first three tiers. Excuse me. But a lot of the relationships, they're not doing that. They just stay right there. And women have been so gleefully accepting of it. And I think now, women are, there's still a lot of work to do. I do think a lot of women are waking up, but there's still so much, there's still just so much more. Women have to, I think that they're so afraid to sacrifice whatever sort of privileges or benefits that they're receiving under this system. Because if you do, number one, you're going to find yourself by yourself. And, it's, it's not, I guess it's not that easy, right? When you're letting go of something, you're slowly letting go. I mean, it's just like even within a marriage, right? You have that, that you want out, but there's still this hesitation because there's so many different things that you're still holding on to. I mean, obviously children is one. You're so worried about the children. What are the children going to do? How are they going to respond to it. I mean, it's so amazing to me. People really act like children are just going to be like completely fucked up individuals for the rest of their lives just because their parents got a divorce. Right? I always say that, first of all, children are very resilient. If they're being loved and supported throughout this process, they will be fine. And it's so funny because when you talk to people who are, full grown adults and they talk about, when their parents got a divorce when they were young, and they'll say, well, yeah, I wish they would have done it a long time ago. It just took them way too long because they were fighting so much. And it was just like, would y'all just split up already? Because damn. Right? So people, it's like you gotta really think about like how it's affecting the children. Because a lot of times the children, they just so sick of y'all, they just be like, would y'all just file for divorce so we can get this over with? You know? It's a lot of kids that are feeling like that. And so, the parents are just so, yeah, they're so afraid. Like it's the way that adults have this fear of things, right? Like, what are you so fearful of? Just because, you don't want to be together anymore. You're so worried about the children. Like, what is that fear? Like, where does that stem from? And I know what it stems from because we go back to the nuclear family. That is the setup. That is the psyop. The nuclear family is a psyop, right? And we have been so conditioned to think that if both the parents aren't in the home, the children are just fucked. That's not the case. Everything has an exception. Yes, there's dysfunctional, relationships that end really badly, and the children, it's like this whole thing. As you see people, they're in divorce court and they're using the children, weaponizing the children. We know all of those things happen, but that's not every single case. So I am always about, okay, yeah, it happens over here, but that's not always the case. Let's take this thing, let's deconstruct it, and let's really just take all of the emotion out of it, and let's just look at it for what it is. Right? Let's take the fear out of it because there's so much fear surrounding that. Let's remove the fear from it just for a second, right? Because it's never just going to go away. And the fear is there for a reason. You need to face it. You need to take it. You need to transmute it. But let's just remove it from the scenario if we're just thinking about it in our minds and seeing how we would want it to go, right? Let's remove the fear for a minute. When you remove the fear, what happens? You're left with just, okay, I love my children. He loves the children. He wants to, you know, we both want the children to be happy, right? We know that us staying together is making them completely unhappy. So what's the opposite of that? Us not being together so they can be happy, right? So I have my place here, you have your place here. We can figure out how we want to do it. It can be done. It's not like it's just this, oh my God, and the children are just going to be so messed up. It doesn't have to be that way. I think that the adults actually perpetuate that. I think they make it worse than it has to be. I really do think that. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, you don't have to use the children in court and weaponize them against their father or their mother. You don't have to do that. Everything is a choice. I think people always forget that we have a choice. There's options. And we stay for the kids and don't realize it fucks them up more watching a parent. Yeah, but it's not something the kids can't learn from and do. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I I really think behind all of that, the reason why is because it goes right back to what I say. Most people aren't going to do the work on themselves. They're just not. And so they're going to project all of their fears and their shadows. They're going to project all that onto their children. They're going to outsource everything they're going to project all that onto their children, right? And then, as I say before, women outsource their shadow to men all the time. But I think that the adults are the ones that make it worse for the children. because of their own fears, their own traumas that they never faced, right? And so then they project it onto the children. And they put it in their mind, like I said before, like the children are just going to be completely messed up for the rest of their lives. They're going to be in and out of therapy. It's just a divorce. Seriously. It's a transition. It's a change. That's all that is. I remember I had explained to my son, I had made it so simple for him. And he was like, well, if we don't live together, and because that's what families do. I said, okay, am I still your mother? No, no. I said, is your father still your father even if you don't live in the same house with him? He was like, yeah. So how are you not a family? I was like, do you live his favorite cousins? I said, do your cousins, do you live with your cousins? He's like, no. I said, are they still your cousins? He was like, yeah. I said, are they still your family? He was like, yeah. I said, so think about it. Just because you don't live with your cousins doesn't mean they're not your cousins. Just because you don't live in the same house with your father doesn't mean he's not your father. Just because we don't all live in the same house doesn't mean we're still not a family. We can still do family things. We can still operate as family. You don't, we, but I get it. He's a child. He's going to equate family has to live in the house. Family has to live in the house. And I get that. But when we have situations like that, we have to present the, we, we have to present the logical part of that to them. We have to simplify it. I had to really simplify it for him. And once I did that, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay. I said, yeah, so it's still your family. Family don't have to live in the same house. It's still family. And so once I said that, he's like, oh, he got it. So I think it's just about sitting down with them and just simplifying it, helping them to deconstruct it, like present them the questions, the basic questions. And then they'll start to come to the conclusions on their own and they'll actually start to make sense. But people don't give children the benefit of the doubt. They don't think that children can grasp things and understand. That's why they treat children the way that they do. Adults don't see children as humans, right? So they don't have respect for children, and they don't think children can understand things, right? And so so instead of looking at them, I call them the tiny humans. Instead of looking at them as actual beings, autonomous beings with agency, adults don't do that. I've always had respect for children, right? And I've never seen them as less than. So I knew that once I had children, I was going to treat my children the same way. I would never, like I said, I've always had respect for my children, right? And always want to talk to them and help them to understand things. So I ask questions. Like I ask my daughter my questions. I'll say, well, does that make sense? Think about it. Does that really make sense? Or whatever we're talking about. And it gets those wheels turning in her head, right? And she starts to have an understanding of things. And I do the same thing with my son. So, but as y'all know before, I've told you several times, my son has autism, so it's a different thing. But again, it's like we don't, adults don't think that children can understand things and grasp things. And so that's how they treat them, as if they're just these beings that have no agency and you just have to control them and tell them what to do, and that's it. And I used to always say I would make a conscious effort that I was not going to be that way with my own children. So I have respect for children. I respect my children. um and that's what I do. So yeah, but that that mediocrity. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that women have to be very strategic and not accept that shit, like, but at the same time, have, when I say that, have high standards for yourself, because you have a lot of women who the standards are just in the toilet for themselves, but they expect these men to do all these amazing things, right? So have high standards for yourself first. And then, that man has to meet you there. Right. And I think that's the best way to go if you're going to deal with them. Because like I said, I never tell women don't deal with men. I never tell women don't have children. I don't never say that. I just want women to be strategic. I want them to stop being delusional. Right? So that's what I do. That's what I teach. That's what goes on in the container. We pull those things out. So just real quick, I'll go ahead and plug this in. I am holding I have the free 45-minute coaching session. This is for women who they have losses. Uh, they have left the relationship or the marriage. And I always say that when women, they're sort of like in this state of flux, right? It's like, okay, now what? What's next? And so I help with the 45-minute the 45-minute coaching session, it's really sort of like a diagnostic thing. We're just kind of seeing like where you are, and and to see like where you are on your journey, and to see how the container, like what areas we would need to cover, how it would help you. I mean, I have each week there's something that we cover in that 4-week container, but it's still based on where you are, right? And like I said before, identity restoration, reinstalling inner authority. That's the main thing. Nervous system, somatic exercises to regulate your nervous system, because that's another thing that women, that we have to really get into. Because most of these marriages and relationships and stuff, they do a number on our nervous system. So that has to be addressed. So I have these somatic exercises for that. So that is, like I said, within the free coaching session, we just, like I said, it's kind of like a diagnostic, just see where you are and to see how the container can help you. Most women who most women who end up doing the free coaching session, they usually go into the container. So that's what I'm doing. My link is in my bio up here. I don't know how do I get to, I don't like messing around with this when I'm on the phone, because I don't know if you guys can still see me. I think it automatically turns the camera off when I have to go get my link. But anyway, my link is in my bio. If you guys are on my email list, then you already know, you get my emails, my link is in there. So book your session, for those of you who haven't. And like I said, the link is in my bio. And then everything, all of my offers and stuff, everything lives at my Stand store. So you can go in there and check it out. The free coaching session, like I said, that link is in the bio. The one-on-one container is on there. I did a masterclass last week called The Woman Underneath. That is available for purchase as well on my Stand store. That was a really good class. And check out my other offers. Also, let's see, you can find me on Facebook. Link is in there as well. Everything's on the bio. So I am going to dip out of here, and because I have some things I need to go do. So that's it. That's it, ladies. Have a wonderful rest of your day.